The last part of the ecosystem side of things is the supply chain. How have things changed within the supply chain? Initially, we had a very traditional mobile infrastructure supply chain. There was component providers providing software and hardware elements to go in the device. They were being integrated by equipment manufacturers who often will hire an ODM to do the manufacturing side of things. They were using the tier ones as their channel, and those tier ones are delivering an integrated system into the operator's network. What's changed has been the left side of this, or the right side from your perspective, of the diagram. This whole level of activity that's going on within the components and solution provider side of things has been focused on really providing more competition. So providers like PicoChip and Continuous Computing have been doing integration and reference designs and reference applications that are enabling some of those ODMs to deliver their own solutions into the marketplace. It's also enabling more OEMs to enter the marketplace. Some of the original equipment guys, like Ubiquitous and IP Access, are also enabling others to use their software on different hardware form factors. So they're providing a software solution to ODMs, allowing them to spin unique hardware infrastructure associated with that and deliver a lower cost solution over time. So we've had a lot of change on this side of the supply chain, but what hasn't changed to date is the necessity of having a tier one manufacturer delivering the end-to-end system. So Big Brother has to be involved regardless of all the progress that we've made. So maybe a year or two down the line, they'll be able to, where we are with cell phones, where you can go to a Best Buy or a consumer electronics place and buy these, but we're not there yet. So we're still early days and getting to that point. So you still need a Cisco or an Alcatel-Lucent that has the trust of the operator to deliver a service within licensed spectrum, which by far is their most valuable and expensive asset. So that was a little bit about how the ecosystem has changed, and I want to change gears and spend some time on the value proposition. So going beyond the equipment and more towards how is it being used. And first and foremost, I'm looking at the Femtocell itself and the value proposition to the operator. And a little bit tongue-in-cheek, I've put, it's not your parents' Femtocell. And what I mean is in just 4 years, we've gone from a very distinct definition of something. It was a 4 to 8 user device, targeted to go in your home, using your broadband to give you better coverage, better performance when using your cell phone, using your data card within your home. But what we see today is everything is a Femtocell. If it goes on a lamppost, if it goes on, in the metro area, it's going to the enterprise, everyone's calling this a Femtocell. I have people coming to me saying, I want a 128 user Femtocell, and I'm scratching my head thinking it's not a picocell. But I mean, the real takeaway is that the residential solution has provided a technology foundation that allows us to expand on this concept and use it in very different ways. We can take this idea of something that is self-organizing, manages interference, self-configuring, and allows us to deploy smaller cells in a broader area of applications. So in the enterprise, for enterprise services, large and small enterprise, getting better coverage, better performance, integration with enterprise services, both on the move and in the enterprise, in a public access domain, so that you have better coverage maybe in inner cities or in areas where it's very difficult to deliver service. So we've really, the Femtocell concept from a residential perspective has been expanded and is delivering what we think is a huge shift in how networks are deployed. So up until just the last few years, we were in what we're calling is the coverage era, delivering macro cells on the top of a hill with a huge antenna, delivering service to a wide number of people over a wide area. And this has been sufficient as we've been focused primarily on voice services. Where we've gone and where the Femtocell, we believe, has enabled is its hierarchical cell structure. This is delivering broad area coverage with maybe a macro cell and having a layer of cell sites that are smaller, more directed at providing both coverage and performance. It's a very straightforward concept at a very high level to think, if I share this service on a macro cell with maybe 300 people, I shrink that cell site down and now I'm sharing it with 20 people, it's the same amount of performance. So you've divided the same amount of performance over a factor of 10 less people. So what I realize is a huge boost in capability on my cell phone itself, And as an operator, I deliver a massive amount of capacity because I'm delivering that within the same spectrum that I've resourced or that I've bought from the regulator community. So I don't have to buy more spectrum to deliver more service. I deliver smaller cells to deliver a better service. And this is taking on, we've highlighted here a comment from one of the operators more recently that they see a small cell a critical part of their deployment of LTE. So that's how things have played out or are playing out from a component perspective or a Femtocell perspective. How has the value proposition been given to the consumers, though? And what I've shown here is kind of what I would say was the initial bias of the Femto community on how things were going to be marketed in different regions of the world. And for most of us, we realized that the US was the first place to deploy femtocells. One of the first times that US was first with a new technology in the mobile space. But it's really has been and was expected to be a coverage solution. The marketing, the whole concept of mobile service is driven around coverage in the US. So, you know, can you hear me now? 5 bars wherever you go. That's what we hear from our mobile operators in the North America community. And that's what we've heard from them from a Femtocell perspective. Now, we also believed when you went to Europe and in the Asia Pacific region, the message would stray away from coverage and go towards performance. Because these devices deliver you a higher degree of performance by giving you a dedicated cell site, and because coverage is often to believe less of an issue in those regions of the world. So our expectation was that in Europe you'd see a blending of coverage and performance, and in Asia Pacific it would be all about increased performance. And what I've shown here is just some of the logos of the vendors who have deployed Femtocell technology. So what have we seen? Well, I spent a couple hours searching websites to get just these 5 snippets. So the first thing that I've seen is the operators are yet to really push this on us. It took me a while to find these actual clips of the value proposition from a web perspective. But what you're seeing is everything is about coverage. So in the US, from a Verizon perspective, even the name of the device is a network extender. We're highlighting things like enhance your coverage indoors, unlimited voice calling, so that the value proposition in the US kind of matched up to what we expected. But surprisingly, that same value proposition has been the focus in the other regions of the world. And almost forgetting to talk to the customer, the consumer, about the performance benefits that are there. So it's not just about coverage, it's also about an improved experience for the consumer. And to date, we've been very focused as an industry on coverage, and I think one of the key things for us to get to that next level will be to evangelize on the performance benefits of this solution and to change our marketing approach as an industry. The next step I took was saying, okay, so if that's the value proposition, how are things being reviewed from at least from a technology reviewer perspective? And you know, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell the consumer and the reviewer that this thing is all about improving your coverage, that's all they're going to focus on. So if you look at the review that was done of the AT&T solution by Walter Mossberg here in the Wall Street Journal, his conclusion was, if you have no coverage, this thing is phenomenal. You know, his son was in the basement of an apartment in a city like New York City, had 0 coverage. He plugged it in, had phenomenal coverage. He could use his cell phone. Really excited about it. In his suburban home where he had mediocre coverage, this solution really didn't provide him much benefit from his perspective. But he wasn't looking at how fast he could play with a gadget on his iPhone or an app on his iPhone. He didn't even think about that in his review. Similarly, in the UK, where Vodafone has a big push on their Sure Signal solution, the other sort of problem with just talking about coverage is highlighted, which is that it's seen as a way of getting the consumer to pay for the operator to fix a hole in its network. So if you only focus on that, what the conclusion was here was that the thing works great, but they're kind of tricking us. But you know what? I'm not going to move my house to get a cell phone coverage, so I might as well buy into this solution and get it. Now, there's no problem with that. This solution was designed to provide better service indoors, and coverage is absolutely one of the tenets. But I think as an industry, in the near future and for our overall success, a focus on the performance benefits and those aspects of things will be absolutely critical to the value proposition. So that leads me to my predictions. So I'll take out my crystal ball here and spend a few slides on what I think is coming next. First prediction is LTE. I believe that LTE is going to be a bigger market for small cells than 3G. And I believe this for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, the technology is defined and available and understood by the operator community today. With 3G Femtocell, we came in after the fact and said, you have a problem, here's a solution. What operators can do today is they can design this into their network rollout. We've solved some very difficult problems. We've solved the problem of self-configuration. We're solving the problem of self-optimization and interference management. So some of the really difficult technical challenges that were inherent in the 3G side of things have been solved. And now the operator has a tool in their tool chest to use when delivering an LTE service. So as they provide LTE, they can provide macro coverage in broad areas with their macro cell networks, and then deliver increased performance in key areas with a small cell. The second and sort of corollary to that is if you believe that LTE is going to be a huge market for Femtocell, then it's also not a big leap of faith to understand that those devices are more than likely going to be multi-mode. That means either a 3G WCDMA solution plus LTE, or maybe a CDMA 2000 solution plus LTE. From a residential perspective, you're going to have mixed households. Not everybody in the household is going to jump to LTE. You may have a power user in a household or a corporate user in a household that needs that capacity. But you don't, as an operator, want to deliver a unique and individual device that only serves a subsegment of the market. Now, we also believe these LTE small cells will be delivered more in an open access metro area perspective. So that means they're going to have to spend money on hanging it on a lamppost or putting it in a cable strand to deliver these solutions. So they have site acquisition costs, they have backhaul costs. So if you're going to spend all that money to deliver an LTE solution, why would you not take the large majority of your consumers and cover them with 3G as well? So we believe very, very quickly that we'll go from these LTE proof points of small cells to commercial devices that are multi-mode 3G and LTE. My last prediction, or almost a plea from an industry perspective, is, from 2006 to 2010, we're in what I'm calling the technology introduction phase. We've proven that it can do what we said it could do. It does boost coverage. It does provide better performance indoors. We can solve the hard integration challenges and optimization challenges and management challenges that come with these types of devices. But it's not just about coverage. We're going to transition to what I think is called, or what I've called, the technology exploitation phase, or a time where we're going to take advantage of the fact that the device is in the home and deliver services that are unique to having that presence capability. So there's a lot of talk about having a services capability to deliver the fact that you're in the home to the device manufacturer, and then you can deliver an application that's based on that. So really going from a coverage-centric proposal to data and services is absolutely key to the industry. And the Femto Forum has spent a ton of energy on delivering a service API. So think of enabling APIs to deliver new applications. So things that talk about presence, that support instant messaging, that support breakout into the home network in a standard fashion so that we can open these devices up to the development community so you can have an app store for Femtocells. So that's the vision and the hope that going forward we take advantage of what is an amazing technology breakthrough to deliver better services, better performance, and increased coverage. So that was my real presentation. I think in summary, I believe these devices are poised for a mass market expansion. We have the ecosystem that's necessary. We have the standards that allow us to scale. I'd also, one of the key points is that small cells are mutating networks. We're not just delivering a residential femtocell, but also expanding this into the enterprise, into the metro area networks to deliver a better quality of service and a better quality of experience for the consumer. The value proposition, if you haven't been paying attention, needs to grow from coverage to performance and data and services. And finally, that LTE and dual mode is the next big opportunity both for equipment manufacturers and operators to provide better services to the consumer community. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the participation and everyone paying attention for the half hour here. And feel free to ask me any questions with the last few minutes that we have here.